Hello everybody, hope you're all well. This is Bradley from Race Beacon, and today we're going to be talking about something that's brought me back to making a video. It's actually nothing that remarkable, I just think this is a really interesting subject to talk about, and it can change this team's fate completely as we're looking forward for the rest of the decade. So as you guys may have heard, AlphaTauri are going through a rebrand! Woo! But what's so special about that, and really what implications will it have? Because it's just a new name and a new livery. But it's not. It's not just a new name and a new livery. This is all part of a much wider restructuring that Red Bull are putting that team through. And today we're going to go through it and sort of discuss, will it work? And I think the answer is sort of, maybe. That's the best I could do. Okay, but let's start off with what the things that we actually know are going to happen, because I use air quotes because it might not. But the first bit is that they are changing their name, and they're changing it to... I don't know why I'm doing the drum roll. This isn't a new bit. It's Racing Bulls! Isn't that a brilliant name? But the more interesting bit is that does mean we get a lovely new livery, because the current livery is tied to the AlphaTauri clothing brand, which I've got to say looks clean as hell. But rumoured is that we're going to get a nice blue and silver livery. Here's what it could look like, as in the colours have literally just been put onto this year's livery. But look, that's a beautiful colour scheme for a Formula 1 car, and as far as I'm concerned, absolutely all for it. But you know, why these colours, apart from them just looking very pretty? It is because the two title sponsors are rumoured to be Cash App and Visa at the moment, which are two, you know, pretty big companies. So obviously new title sponsor means a new lovely grand spanking livery, and I think that's what we've got here. But this is all a rebrand so far. It has no impact on their on-track performance whatsoever. So why does this video exist? Well, obviously this is all part of a much wider restructuring going on at AlphaTauri. Not only do we know of changes in the upper management and the whole structure of effectively the whole operations of the team, with a move away from Faenza in Italy, moving towards the UK in line with most of the teams on the grid. And obviously, of course, bringing them in line with Red Bull, the sister-brother team? Wait, now how does that work? The Big Daddies. I think that's worse. But we also know that next year they will be using as many parts as possible being ripped straight from the Red Bull to the Racing Bulls project. That's just what they're going to do. It's obviously as much as the regulations will allow. They're not just going to copy the whole car, because that's that's a big no-no. But they will be able to copy significant aspects of the car. And that's something that obviously could bring massive performance. They're using the same engine, which means aerodynamically, all of those parts they're copying will apply to their car a hell of a lot better than it does if, let's say, if you put the Red Bull package on a Mercedes, because the engine packages are, well, they're very fundamentally different, which obviously affects the bodywork and therefore the aerodynamics. So when we hear every weekend about Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren bringing Red Bull-esque upgrades, it's not a guarantee of success, and they can't copy that car fully. The improvements available from AlphaTauri or Racing Bulls bringing these upgrades is much higher, because simply the aero on the Red Bull is much more compatible with their engine compared to a Mercedes engine, compared to a Renault engine, and so on. But what does all of this actually mean? Overall, especially with the move to the UK, if that does turn out to be true, it indicates basically a shift to a much less independent team, where Red Bull will, obviously they already have a significant say, but they'll have an even greater say in the operations of the team, meaning that they may be brought more into line with how Red Bull operates and the culture surrounding it. They'll effectively be the same team even more than they are now. Now, obviously, it's unclear if the rumoured title sponsorships does actually give enough funds for them to remain in Faenza, because the biggest driver of a potential move to the UK was operational costs. And you know, F1's worth a lot of money right now, and there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of money being pumped right into this sport. They may be able to stay in Faenza. I'm sure that's not top of Red Bull's priority list when it comes to how they restructure this team, but really it's more what this signals. Red Bull want a much stronger second team. Now obviously this isn't new. Toro Rosso were a pretty good team for a few seasons. Think back to the late 2000s, they had a couple of really good results with some, I mean, yeah, fairly good drivers. But moving into the early 2010s and the mid 2010s, they also had some really good results. And again, a lot of that may have been down to the quality of driver they had. But overall, this shows that Red Bull just want a more competitive second team. Really, AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, whatever you want to call them, or Racing Bulls, they've been on the decline for the last half a decade or so. And year on year, their driver pairings have just been getting worse, it feels like. With the Red Bull Academy maybe starting to stall, they know they need that little extra performance from the car. Because because you can't rely on having a Max Verstappen, a Carlos Sainz, a Sebastian Vettel in your junior program all the time. That's just not how it works. Because yeah, ultimately they feel like a team in decline at the moment. They currently sit only P8 in the standings, narrowly beating Haas and Alfa Romeo, who themselves have had really terrible seasons. And when you compare them to about 6th place, which is probably where Red Bull want that team to be, they want to be around that sort of upper midfield pack, they're about 100 points off of Alpine. And now a lot of newer fans will be thinking, yeah, well, it's AlphaTauri, isn't it? You know, that's just how it is. But no, like I said, they've been more competitive in the past. You know, why should Red Bull settle for their second team not being as good? That doesn't make any sense. Now, obviously, we have the personal point for a lot of people on where they stand when it comes to having a second team. I'll admit, I'm the same in football. I'm not a fan of the owners having 2 teams, especially when you're racing in the same series. That doesn't sit right with me, and that's why there definitely needs to be a high degree of independence separating the 2 teams, which Red Bull are probably looking to erode a little bit. But you know, this most recently was seen with I think it was the Yuki Tsunoda representatives from AlphaTauri not even turning up to the stewards meeting to discuss Max Verstappen blocking in qualifying. And to me, that kind of stunk. I really don't like that. And really, I think the FIA should be looking at something to prevent that happening again. Because, no. But ultimately, will it work? And like I said at the start of the video, I think the answer's maybe. And that sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but ultimately it comes down to how much new investment they're getting, how close they're going to work with Red Bull, what parts they actually can copy over and how efficiently they copy them over. If Red Bull are incredibly overpowered next year, like Adrian Newey's been shouting, and you know he never does that, but he has been very clear that he thinks next year's car is going to be incredibly strong and that all of the other teams are not on the right path. That AlphaTauri could be P2. Now, I don't think it will. I really genuinely don't. I think it's P5 or P6 best next year. But look, it's more the intentions of Red Bull at the moment. It will take a couple of years for any changes really to seep through, as it does for anything. You know, Aston Martin, they're going to get better year on year. Okay, this year they took their development the wrong way by a significant margin, but ultimately come the start of next year they may have recovered and they may be just getting stronger and stronger each year as more of their facilities, their new factory come online. You've got McLaren with a new wind tunnel. These things don't just happen overnight. You really do have to wait a couple of years for all of these investments. Sometimes, sure, you can just get an instant hit. Think back to the Brawn, but that car was a really strong car coming from Honda, and yeah, it really turned out to be. But yeah, guys, let me know down in the comments, do you think this is a good idea? How does this sit with you on like an independence level? And yeah, do you think it will work? Do you think this will boost Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, Racing Bull? I don't like the name. Racing Bull's prospect? I actually really don't like the name. But we're gonna have to get used to it. So, see you next time.